I watched that 3-part story, so you don't have to. That's Anna, and she's letting us know that her neighbor turned his car into an explosive device and rammed it straight into her house. Now, they've been neighbors for about 2 years, and she said for the most part, they never had really any issues. They even bought a used car from him from his car lot, but whole time, he has this like secret vendetta against them for many reasons, but the top reason being that in his mind, the neighbor believes that Anna's dad is sleeping with his wife, and to Anna's knowledge, his wife is a bit of a drug addict. So one morning, Anna, her parents, her husband, they're all in the house, and actually her parents were getting ready to leave for a birthday trip, and so Anna ends up jumping in the shower, and as she takes off her clothes to jump in the shower, all of a sudden she hears a sonic boom, and the bathroom is on fire, and then this 300-pound steel beam, which she doesn't even know if it's from her house or where it came from, just comes sliding right past her head and just inches away from hitting her and completely decapitating her. And so obviously she freaks out and she doesn't even know what to do. Does she run out? Does she put clothes on? She's completely frozen, right? All of a sudden her parents on the other side are screaming for her. She starts screaming. She just runs out of the room naked, runs into her partner's arms at this point. He tells her immediately, go put some clothes on. So she goes into her bedroom to try to open the door, but her bed and her dresser, which were on the opposite sides of the door, had slid and completely pretty much jammed her door closed. And so now she's trying to push and try to get in there. The men in the house have now ran into the bathroom to try to take that fire out. Her mom goes outside, and when she goes outside, sure enough, she sees that it is the neighbor's truck that's in the side of their house. And so she runs back inside. She's like, call the police, call the police. They call the police. The neighbor is still inside of the truck, you guys. So apparently later on, obviously when the investigation is going on stuff, her and her family end up finding out that this neighbor apparently got into an argument with his wife earlier that day over some type of phone or SIM card. The wife told him, hey, go take a ride. I don't want to see you right now. So he jumps in his car, he drives around, he ends up listening to dogs and wolves howling for 5 hours straight, and then decides to load up his truck both in the back of the bed and in the cab full of flammable items like propane tanks, fireworks, all types of things, and then he lit them all on fire and proceeded to drive his truck at 50 miles per hour straight towards his neighbor's house. Anna tells us the only thing that really saved her house from burning down very quickly was the fact that the sides of the house had concrete on them, so it slowed down how fast it burned. Now the truck is still wedged into the side of the house, and the neighbor is stuck inside of his truck and his door is completely smashed. They can't get him out. What do? The father runs towards the truck and he starts yanking at the truck, trying to help his neighbor get out. The very neighbor that just tried to kill him and his family and has been threatening them for over 2 years. He starts yanking. It's not working. The whole time the neighbor is inside of the truck begging them, please shoot me in the head, shoot me in the head. I did this for my wife. And they're just looking at him like, nobody, we're not shooting you in the head. So eventually, as a last ditch effort, the dad yanks at the door again, and eventually he's able to get the neighbor out. Something to note is that the neighbor had no legs, and so his prosthetic legs were actually stuck in the car. That was one of the reasons he was also stuck, I'm assuming. So the dad was able to yank him, basically remove him, and be able to pull him out. Now remember, the truck is on fire, so now the neighbor is on fire. The dad pulls him out, he throws him on the yard, and he tells him to roll around until the fire is put out, because at the end of the day, he's also yelling at him like, you just try to kill my family, you just try to take us all out. At this point, police, firefighters are all arriving on the scene, and when they look, the neighbor is crawling, basically trying to get himself back to his own house, and they're looking at him like, nobody, you're under arrest. They put him under arrest. They end up transporting him over to the hospital, and he has to go into the burn unit and stay there for about 3 months. Once he was healed up, he was transferred to the jail so that he can now stand trial. The neighbor was ultimately charged with attempted murder. He pled guilty on an Alford plea, which essentially just means that he understands that he's pleading guilty, but he's maintaining his innocence, mostly because he understands that the prosecution definitely has enough evidence to go ahead and take him to trial. So by accepting this, he's accepting a longer sentence. Anna said this basically allowed him to avoid a jury trial. I guess when he was sentenced, they gave him like over 100 years, and when you're given 100 years in a sentence, basically now gives you the right to have a jury trial. So they had to go through a trial, and this obviously upset her and her family because they had to relive the whole situation. They went up there, her family testified, some neighbors testified, saying basically that he had told them like, I'm going to unalive her family, my wife, another neighbor that I'm pretty sure is sleeping with my wife. He had this whole plan. It was time for the neighbor to testify, and I guess the day before, he jumped on the jail phones with his wife for about an hour, and they basically discussed ways for him to be able to try to say in his testimony that this was an accident, that it was all this big silly accident. It was never meant to be intentional. And she was coaching him. And so before the trial resumed the next day, they were like, hold on, you guys, before the jury comes in, we need to go ahead and discuss this phone call and review it. Even though they know about this phone call, the neighbor still took the stand, and he pretty much stuck to his plan. And he tried to say that it was an accident. He tried to blame, the mechanics of his car. He tried to say that he accidentally lit one of the fireworks and freaked out, and that caused him to go there, that he never had any intentions of hitting the neighbor's house. But at the end of the day, from the video camera, you can see that he avoided like a bunch of obstacles, including other houses, including trees, and basically pinpointed and maneuvered the car straight into their house. His testimony was very much inconsistent. I mean, the man's a mechanic too. The prosecutor asked him, you know so much about cars, why don't you just put the car into neutral? Essentially, he tried to say that there was an issue with his acceleration. He's like, I actually turned the car off. And so then the prosecutor was like, okay, cool, the problem was solved then. And then he's like, yeah, then I turned it back on, and then it just like took over and just kept going straight. And his testimony made absolutely no sense. Anna is also pretty sure that the neighbor was on some type of substance. The wife of the neighbor did end up divorcing him shortly after that, but before she did that, she transferred everything that they owned, all of their assets, into her name. So that way, when Anna and her family went to go sue him, there was literally nothing they can sue him from. He was in jail. There was nothing they can go after. And actually, when she filed for the divorce, if you guys don't know this, divorce filings are public information, right? So they went up and looked at the divorce filing. The wife specifically said that she didn't want to pay for any of the consequences for what he did that day. And so at this point, they're sitting there like, this is so messed up, especially because there's absolutely no way this man was able to load up all those fireworks, all those propane cans without someone helping him. And then when it came to insurance, Anna and her family weren't able to claim anything on insurance because once it's deemed that the accident was actually intentional, it pretty much waives any insurance. And then anything that they were able to get out of this situation as far as money goes didn't cover any of the repairs. She's just obviously grateful it didn't take her entire childhood home and that they were still able to rebuild it. They also learned, I don't know if it happened that same day or another day, but the neighbor had actually attempted to strangle his own wife, and the wife was able to call 911 using Siri and was able to save herself. And so this man really was a little unhinged, and they even found like work from him being in grade school where he was writing really disturbing poems and foreshadowing that he's always wanted to just like ram a car through someone's house, which is very disturbing. Anna tells us a little bit about what happened at the scene of the crime. When detectives showed up, they were making like very, tasteless comments like, what do you think would have happened if that steel beam hit your head? And she's like, I would have been dead or decapitated. And he's like, well, those are the same thing. Like, is that really like an appropriate conversation to have with a victim in that moment? And Anna said he wasn't even a good detective. He was looking for the prosthetic legs, which were like in the cabin of the truck, and another neighbor had to walk over and point them out for him. So this was really traumatizing for Anna and her family. I mean, imagine watching your house like go up in flames, not to mention she doesn't even know this neighbor really. She's never really seen him. She's never stepped foot on his property. So for him to have basically harassed them for 2 years between accusing them of theft, accusing them of sleeping with his wife, calling the police on them, he even was like putting a spotlight on their house. I mean, this guy was doing his best to disturb their peace. The last thing that Anna really mentioned was the fact that one of the main reasons the truck wasn't really able to go all the way through the house was because their foundation was a little bit higher, and that kind of saved them. And so she shows a bunch of photos. I'll put a few of them here of the damage that, happened because of this. Either way, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. I hope that your family was able to rebuild. You guys tagged me in this a bunch. Sorry it took so long to get it out to you guys. I appreciate you as always. Bye.